Warship Island. These 8 episodes of One Piece, spanning across episodes 54 through 61, are the first filler arc. Though there had been 3 filler episodes in the past, this was the first time a string of them had been put together into one congruent story. Now, I'm going to admit to you that this is my first time watching One Piece. I know. Call me behind all you want in the comments. However, I am reading the manga. I've been reading it since last year, and I've made it all the way up to Skypiea, which I accidentally called Skypedia when I first read it, because that's just how I misread it by accident. Moving on, I figured that since this is my first time engaging with the anime, I'd talk about the first filler arc of Warship Island. The 4 kids dubbed actually skip this arc and skip straight from Log Town to Reverse Mountain, and I don't know how to feel about that, so I'm wondering if they were right or if it's better to keep watching. My friend actually suggested I do this video. Before proceeding, just know that this is made under the context that you are okay with Warship Island being spoiled, and if you don't care about that, just know that up until this point, the first 53 episodes of the anime have happened, the first season of the live-action version has happened, and the first 100 chapters of the manga have happened. With that out of the way, how bad really is the first One Piece filler arc? Should it be skipped? Come aboard and find out. Warship Island! Luffy's unnecessary journey! Episode 54 starts out with an unnamed girl, later confirmed to be named Apis, trying to escape her imprisonment aboard a marine ship. All in all, this scene is rather chaotic for the start of an episode, let alone an entire arc. One thing I do have to compliment the voice actress on, though, is that she does an amazing job screaming. After she escapes, we see Commodore Nelson berate a lower-ranking Marine, and mentions that Apis is an important clue towards finding the Dragonite. Jeez, it's not even a mythical Pokemon. You'd think they'd be trying to find, like, a Mew or something. No offense to Dragonite fans. This scene is also when we're introduced to Eric. He has an oddly American name, and it seems like something they did in dubbing, but as far as I can tell, his name is the exact same version in the subbed version. Once the Straw Hats find themselves out of the storm, Luffy accidentally rescues Apis, thinking that she's a fish. After Luffy reveals that the Going Mare is a pirate ship, Apis becomes rather scared and distant from everyone until Sanji cooks her food later in the night. The next morning, Apis reveals her name and that she just escaped from a marine ship 3 days ago. In this scene, it's also revealed that Apis' home, Warship Island, is called that because it's shaped like a warship. It's also close to the Grand Line, so it's not too far out of Luffy's way, so he decides to go help her. As far as filler episodes go, episode 54 keeps the same type of humor and characterization as the rest of One Piece. It could easily fit right in. The only odd thing about it is that it progressed at a reasonable pace, unlike One Piece, which moves at the pace of a dead snail. Overall, 7 out of 10. Episode 55 picks off right where the last one left off. Nami freaks out over the comm belt, while no one else seems too concerned. If you've made it this far into One Piece, you know that there's no wind or current on the comm belt. Additionally, a lot of sea monsters live there. After narrowly escaping with their lives, Luffy spots Warship Island. See, I thought they meant that from the top, like, it's gonna be shaped like a warship, like the silhouette, like, kind of like how Utah is shaped like Missing now, but no, it's like shaped like a warship tall-wise. Like, I'm really impressed. Once the Straw Hats dock on the island, they question why Apis is wanted by the Marines, and she doesn't seem to know, nor does her grandpa, Bokuden, who lives on the island. Apis is gone for a long time, so Luffy and Nami decide to follow her via a trail they spotted. They end up following her to a cave where they end up seeing her feed a dragon pork buns. According to Apis, this dragon is named Grandpa Ryu, and the only reason she's able to communicate with it is because she ate the Whisper fruit. However, despite Luffy not eating the Whisper fruit, he's also able to communicate with Ryu just fine. According to Apis, Ryu believes that there's a place called Lost Island, which will appear any day now, and wants to go there. Nami finally also announces the importance of Dragonite, and that it allows for immortality. The episode pretty much ends there, back to making very little progress per episode. Not as great as the previous one. I think it's just kind of a nothing episode, and could probably be summarized in a quarter of the time. Not even a 7, 4 out of 10. Episode 56 starts with the Marines arriving on Warship Island. Before they're taken care of, Luffy and Nami take the rest of the crew to see Grandpa Ryu. Sanji and Zoro seem pretty fine about it, but Usopp freaks out, as always. To get Ryu off the island, they'll need a large cart to pull him in. Luffy, Sanji, Zoro, and Usopp get to work on making it. Meanwhile, Eric and some more Marines start following the trail that leads to the cave Ryu was in. After seeing Ryu for the first time, most of the Marines are scared of him. Once the Marines take aim, Obvious tries to protect Ryu, but Luffy takes the hits instead. After witnessing Luffy's Devil Fruit powers, Eric reveals his title as Eric the Whirlwind of Branch 8, user of the Sickle Fruit, which throughout the course of these episodes, many people refer to it as the Sicko Fruit, which I think is kind of funny. Luffy and Sanji just ignore him, so Eric makes a whirlwind that slashes their arms. Finally, they start heading down the mountain to the Going Merry. Sanji, Luffy, and Ryu get rid of the obstacles in their way, which takes Appius from terrified to having fun. The cart crashes into Eric's marine ship and breaks their main mast. The episode ends with the cart being tied to the ship, and the Straw Hats, plus Appi and Ryu, set sail. The episode was alright. More stuff happened in this one than the last one. I thought it was an interesting lore-wise and good pacing-wise. The only thing that drags it down is the comedy. So many gags in the episode, just Sanji going, "Oh, Nami, I love you if you blah blah blah, man. Get alive." I like Sanji. He can be funny sometimes, but this bit was just too overused in this episode. I'll give it an 8 out of 10, making it the best episode so far. The next episode begins with Eric wanting to keep chasing the main characters, so that he'll be led straight to the Draconite. He also wants to claim the reward all for himself, and not to tell Commodore Nelson. Luffy accidentally spills rice on Ryu's head, and in the process, Ryu spots, maybe envisions, some other dragons flying east of Warship Island, and tells Appius that's where they need to go. A lot of unimportant scenes later, Luffy spots something in the distance, but chooses to ignore it. But as the Going Merry gets closer and closer, he notices a perfect replica of their ship coming right at them. But turns out it was just a reflection. On the other side of the reflection is a bunch of fog and a storm, but Nami figures out that the reflection is just a mirage from the cold air and hot air colliding together. Because of the storm, the rope holding Ryu's raft starts to loosen, but the Straw Hats pull through and make it to an island. After Luffy tries to open a door on the island, the ground opens up beneath everyone, and they're brought to an underground ruin. That's it. This episode really had nothing of interest. It just existed to fill time. I know that what happened in this episode is important, but it already contributes less because it's a filler episode, and contributes even less to the filler story they're trying to tell. And that's not hating on filler. I think that some filler is good, like the Log Town episodes, the cook-off with Sanji, and the Usopp versus Daddy the Parent. Those were both great episodes because they expanded upon the lore and felt like they could realistically happen. This episode specifically embodies a lot about what I don't like about filler. It feels unnatural, it feels forced, and not a lot happens. 2 out of 10. The whole fog and reflection thing was cool, but I can't really praise the episode on much. So far, the worst one. Episode 58 continues from the ruin where everyone is confused about the things around them. Nami figures out that there's a map on the ceiling that shows how to get to the real Lost Island. She also deduces that the dragon symbolism on the island was made to support the dragons the citizens of the island used to praise like gods. Ryu suddenly remembers that Lost Island is actually on Warship Island, meaning that we've been on essentially a wild goose chase that makes episode 57 seem even more useless than I already thought it was. Everyone else rides ahead down the mountain on Ryu's cart, while Zoro stays behind to fight Eric. Before the battle can finish, Luffy stretches to grab Zoro and everyone goes out through the mirage. Marine Fleet 8, Commodore Nelson's fleet, suddenly show up and on the way the Straw Hats are going. With Eric behind them, the Straw Hats are cornered. Now, I know I significantly cut down the story, but nothing happens this episode. You could have skipped the past 2 episodes and nothing would have changed. This episode was just an excuse for a fight scene and a moving background. 0 out of 10. This one didn't even have any redeeming qualities or funny jokes I remember either, so I can't even boost its score. Let's hope it's all uphill from here. Between episodes, I decided to take a break, so maybe my opinion on episode 59 will be more fresh. The episode starts with Marines taking aim and firing at Luffy's crew in an attempt to steal Ryu. Luffy manages to hit a ship back by deflecting a cannonball with Gum Gum Balloon. In response, Commodore Nelson brings out the super giant cannon! Yes, that is what it's called. Before it can fire, Usopp fires a cannonball of his own into the big thing and it breaks. Luffy then stretches his arm to a marine ship that Sanji and Zoro cross before Luffy makes it there himself. Amongst the chaos, Eric and 3 other marines sail up to Ryu's raft. Luffy plans on helping, but Zoro tells him to stop before Eric can use his wind powers. Eric successfully steals Ryu and Apis, revealing that he was planning on betraying Commodore Nelson the whole time. After watching Eric threaten Apis, Ryu knocks Eric into the water and scares off the other 3 marines in the boat. Ryu then roars and flies right at Commodore Nelson. Before he can attack, though, Ryu is shot down into the water by Commodore Nelson's men. Not a lot happens this episode, but what does happen is actually quite unique and exciting compared to what's been going on. Still not great, but the characters were in character, and no one was over the top, and there were meaningful action scenes. This episode gets a 6 out of 10 from me. Episode 60, of course, starts with Ryu in the water, and Sanji points out that Ryu can't swim. I thought this would be important, and it would reveal something about Ryu and the dragons actually being devil fruit eaters, but nope, he's just dying. To capitalize on Ryu's status, Commodore Nelson fires at Ryu with a harpoon, which Luffy barely catches and then throws right back at him. As Luffy tries to save Ryu, the sea starts shaking and Marines open fire. Ryu cries out once again, and this time, both Luffy and Apis know that he's calling for other dragons. Before anyone knows it, a horde of other dragons show up to avenge Ryu. With one last message to Luffy, Ryu passes away in the water. Luffy uses Gum Gum Battle Axe to destroy Commodore Nelson's ship as the dragons circle in the air. All of a sudden, the dragon's nest on Lost Island rises from the sea, which hasn't risen for 1,000 years, according to Nami. On the island, many dragons are fossilized in Dragonite, meaning that Lost Island was a dragon graveyard of sorts. Just as everyone's getting accustomed to Ryu being dead, Luffy says that dragons are reborn, and at that very moment, a new dragon baby hatches. Just before the Straw Hats leave to take Apis home, Zoro and Nami notice that the Dragonite is covered in coral, meaning that it would be impossible to actually take any in the first place, like the Marines had wanted. Both Eric and Commodore Nelson are also on Lost Island, but Eric kicks Nelson while he's down, and prepares for one final fight with Luffy's crew. This episode was good. Stuff happens. There's a good fight. Lost Island is found, and it's one of the few actual deaths in One Piece. They tend to not actually keep characters dead. They will always come back. It's like having a superstar from Mario in your pocket at all times. I wish I could just pull out my pocket one. I don't have one. I'm not immortal. As it was a more serious episode, there weren't many jokes, but again, because of all the good things that happened to it, it gets a 7 out of 10. Now we finally made it to the last episode of this arc, episode 61. We're almost done. Eric, seeing the flock of dragons, wishes to kill them and get Dragonite. Eric tries to convince Luffy to split the Dragonite with him, but Luffy refuses because he's not afraid of death. He'd do anything, and decides to fight. After attacking Luffy first, Zoro plans on joining in, but Luffy wants to keep this fight one-on-one. Eric cuts Luffy up pretty badly with his sickle powers, but Luffy uses Gum Gum Bell and Bazooka to send him flying. The Straw Hats finally leave Warship Island and head for the Grand Line. At the entrance of the Grand Line is Reverse Mountain. You know, if you hit the wrong spots, you'll get sunk under, but if you hit it just right, you'll go right up the mountain. Once successfully flowing up, it's revealed that Eric snuck aboard the Going Merry to get revenge. Nami distracts him, saying that she saw Dragonite before sweeping one of Eric's legs, where he falls into the water. Since he has a devil fruit, he's not able to swim back up the current, so he probably won't be important again. That finally ends the episode and the Warship Island arc of One Piece. This episode actually had a fair amount of canon content, so props there. As for the end of the filler stuff, though, the fight and Eric's demise were rather lackluster. But again, because of canon content, it gets a 9 out of 10 from me. Overall, I think that the Warship Island arc is okay. Not perfect in terms of One Piece story, and certainly less than stellar in terms of filler content. However, the story is unique in terms of early One Piece, and the characters were amazingly written so that you could feel something towards each of them. My final thoughts? 4 out of 10 on the whole arc. It could definitely use some work. Many plot beats feel irrelevant and drag on, while important stuff seems to just not be talked about at all. On the bright side, I think that the pacing on some episodes is some of the arc's biggest saving graces. So, can you skip Warship Island? I think so. It's not brought up again, it goes on for a while, but not long enough to warrant me saying you should skip it. Only that you can. The most crucial episodes are episodes 54 and 61, as they encompass what happens between the end of chapters 100 and the start of chapter 101 in the manga. I hope you enjoyed. I sure didn't. But if you've already seen these episodes, what do you think? Feel free to talk about it in the comments below. Well, see you next time.